Recording now.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another thrilling episode of the Blurring the Lines podcast. This is number 142. I am your host, Peter Nikolaidis, and joining me as always, my co-host, Adam Bell.
Greetings, Peter. It's good to see you again.
It's good to be seen. It's also good to see you. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. As far as I know, I'm doing well.
By what metrics are you judging your performance today?
My stress levels. That's pretty much my how I feel, whether I feel good or not. How stressed am I?
Funny you should mention that, because just as I was saying just before this call, I was on a webinar, yoga masterclass, and I took an hour and a half long, my introduction to yoga nidra, which is a form of yogic meditation, relaxation, focus kind of thing. I'm not sure exactly where to draw the line, but as I'm pretty interested in meditation and restorative yoga and yin yoga and other sort of slower types of practices like this, I've been really interested in nidra for a while. And today it just happened to be, here's a chance for me to, take a class on that. So
how do you spell that?
Nidra.
Nidra. Okay.
Yep. So depending on what part of India and what dialect you might, speak, you might pronounce it Nidra or Nidra. So I've always heard it with an E sound, but the teacher today always was pronouncing it with a soft I sound. So I'm like, it beats the heck out of me. So I know a guy whose name was Sukrit, but a former girlfriend called him Sukrit. He didn't call it that way. I pronounced his name the way he pronounced it, but just, depends on where you are, the dialect, the language, etc.
Yeah. I call you Peter. You say, call me Peter.
Petter.
Patir. Patir?
Patir. That's it.
Patir.
Yes. Patir. Yes. Saag patir. That's one of my favorite dishes. And we're a little punchy today, people, listeners. Listener, you, dear listener, I'm talking to you. Always speak directly to the listener.
Pacifically or Atlantically, you?
I was thinking Indianly based on the previous conversation, but sure. So yes, today's sort of a follow-up / grab bag episode. We got a few little different things to talk about. So yeah. So now I have 90 minutes of experience with yoga nidra. And I will be coming back to that over time because I am very interested. I did order the speaker's book, and that may be the next when I go into more yoga training. I think I will probably be moving in that direction. So yeah, stay tuned.
Fantastic.
You're next.
Maybe we should do a yoga podcast one day.
We've talked about that. Bunch of times.
Like we should legit do yoga podcast.
Yoga podcast.
We might have to fast forward through some spots when we're like held up in a position.
Blurring the chakras.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would call that, but yeah. All right. What else? What have you got?
All right. So a number of things. So Jocko Willink came up in our list of items to discuss. He spoke at Producers Club this week. I didn't listen to all of it just because I was engaged in onboarding a new client and needed to be doing that instead of hearing about how to onboard clients and stuff. But he did have one thing one part that I did catch that I thought was pretty interesting. He was talking about helping people who are on the edge of being successful or failure. That when you kind of want your kids and employees to brush up against failure. Not necessarily, you don't want them to fail because failing is bad for you, bad for them, it's bad for your company, depending on the type of failure, but you want them to have a good understanding of their boundaries, and then they know when to come for help, come for resources, come for information. And it was it was good, and I thought, because he's talking about leadership. I mean,
Right.
he's always talking about leadership, but
It's
I
kind of
can
what he does.
always use leadership tips, and I felt like it was a good tip of you have somebody who is, kind of wanting to do more than they're capable of doing. You've got to give them the opportunity to fail without allowing them to crash and burn and hurt your company.
I was going to say, let them fail, but not fail catastrophically.
Yeah. So let them get to the point where, okay, Peter, you said you want to do this. I'm going to make you in charge of that. And here's the things that point you in the right direction. Don't hold it back from information standpoint. And you go gung ho, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh my, there's no way I can accomplish this in the next 120 years. So I'm going to need help, or I'm going to need resources. Or if you're getting to that point where you're overwhelmed, then as a leader, you have to step in and say, hey, Peter, looks like you're overwhelmed. Or what's the status here? And then you kind of work it without allowing you to catastrophically fail. Or if you do a little bit of failure, meaning you start into it and realize I can't accomplish this without this, then
Yep.
you work on those things. So I thought that was just kind of healthy leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. Give people some room. Well, he's all about decentralized command. That's a definite recurring theme in his podcasts and his book. So I like that. I mean, like I love let go of the reins as much as you can, but first you have to establish those guardrails so that the horses are going to be moving on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
It's funny. So we were talking about that. What got us on Jocko? Not coincidentally, he was at Producers Club. That's pretty funny. I also I'm doing a research paper because I'm in a psychology class right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to address a workplace problem. And one of them is, a classic when people talk about workplace problems, a very classic recurring theme is lack of employee engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And my take on it, however, is maybe not as typical, is looking at it from the top down when
Mm-hmm.
management doesn't engage. So
Yeah.
I was looking up, trying to find specific episodes because I've heard Jocko talk about this a number of times. Like all problems in business are management problems.
Yeah.
Every problem is a management problem. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because management is ultimately responsible for, even if they didn't cause the problem, they are responsible for correcting the problem.
Right.
So trying to take that and give it a psychology spin. So I started looking and I found a recent article on gripezero.com. And I don't even know if that is if it's a syndicated type of Huffington Post type thing, or if it's just this dude who owns it or whatnot. But
Yeah.
one of the first articles that came up in my DuckDuckGo search. Oh, did I mention I've recently switched all of my browsers and phones from using Google as the default search engine to use DuckDuckGo.
So that you're not tracked anymore?
Not as much. We'll get back to that in a bit as to why that's somewhat silly. But anyway, but it's working really well. I'm very happy with the results. It's exponentially better than Bing, which is not saying much. But I'd say at this point that the results I'm getting through DuckDuckGo are very comparable to those of Google. So that's cool.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so Jocko. So I found this article and it came out just last week. It was on Gripe Zero, and it's called Jocko Willink's Harsh Reality. And it was kind of funny because they talk about a bunch of different things about Jocko and who is this guy. John is his name, and
Mm-hmm.
talks about his Navy SEAL career and then how he's got several business ventures going on. They also reviewed some of the things like, so he makes jeans. Don't buy them; they're overpriced. They talk about they say that he's apparently a closet Trump supporter. I'm not really sure I buy that. I mean, he's said some okay things about Trump, but in sort of classic Trumpish fashion. He's also, like at the same time say like, but wait a minute, it's like,
Yeah.
he does some really good things that you agree with, and then 20 seconds later, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, how can that be? So
Yeah.
he seems a little lukewarm, and I think he doesn't want to alienate. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think he's trying to play both sides of the fence there, because I've never heard him come out and say stuff, but I've heard many people that he has had interviewed as guests referred to as right wing neocon, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling though that a lot of people, like, if you have anything to do with the military, you're going to be painted with that brush regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, personally, I like a lot of what he has to say. I am wearing a pair of his blackout joggers right now from Origin, Maine. And I have a big box of his Jocko white tea, which I do enjoy. Um, and I've read both of his books. Well, two of his books. He's written way more than that now. So, I guess you could say I'm somewhat of a fan. And I would like to think that he's a little more sane than he certainly doesn't come across as a QAnon type of extreme kind of guy, nor like a right wing radical. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, they gave an interesting score. How the Gripe Zero, they rate him towards the end, and they rate you people based on trust, honesty and transparency, reputation, and ethics. And trust, they give him a 5 out of 10. Honesty and transparency, 4 out of 10. Reputation, 10 out of 10. And ethics, 3 out of 10. So
Ethics?
The fact that he's got a big reputation is what puts him over the score, like gives him a 5 out of 5. So it's kind of interesting. It was definitely worth a read if you know anything about Jocko at all. It might be worth your time to review this. Could be a bit of a wake up call. It could be a no duh kind of moment. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess ethics. I don't know that. I don't know that I agree with that score. I think he's a pretty solid dude, at least from
He
what
seems to be. I have a feeling that score point might have come from his supporting of the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
Which, unless he was going to completely spin his profile around, he kind of sort of has to. Because otherwise he has to pretty much become an extreme anti-war pacifist kind of guy, because his career, he was made in Iraq. Literally what he is today came out of that fire. So for him to speak out against that in any strong kind of way, that pretty much kick out the foundation of this empire that he's built. Now, I'm not saying that makes it right or wrong. I'm just saying I understand why he would not do that.
Yeah. So. But, I've always been surprised, when I just saw images of him before I ever heard him speak. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm imagining this guy talking like the sergeant in Full Metal Jacket, raspy voice, all yelling and everything. And I don't like people to yell at me. I mean, I don't, Samuel, I'm not yelling. That's just the way I talk, but I've listened to like Bible devotionals, and the guy is telling stories out of the Bible, but he's yelling the whole time.
Well, isn't that the way? I thought you're in the South. I thought when you read from or quote from the Bible, you have to yell. That's not.
No, you don't have to do that. You could just talk to me. You don't have to yell at me.
Interesting. Does the word get delivered if you're not yelling it?
Yeah, it gets in there.
Huh.
It's kind of like if you yell about everything, where is the emphasis?
I would say the emphasis is on the wrong syllable.
There you go.
Or maybe it's on the syllable.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I like Jocko. I think he's done a from a leadership standpoint, I enjoy listening to him. I think he speaks intelligently.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know about his politics, and I really don't care. I mean, and we all have. That's the thing is some people, if he's given him his complete negative score because of something about COVID, we all run on mixed fuel. I'm sure there's absolutely something that I do
Yep.
that some other person would think is immoral, not
Well, you're a Christian, right?
irresponsible. Yeah. Yeah. so so somebody's going to feel that way, but people good I feel like people in general, generally morally centered people run on mixed fuel. They're mostly good and then they've got some flat spots that need to be worked out.
You can't please everyone
No, sir.
all the time.
But you can please some of the people some of the time.
I thought it was better than that.
Yeah, it felt
Yeah.
like it felt really important quote a long time ago.
Yeah, I thought we could please everyone at least sometime. I guess we can. Oh, brother. So, what you're next?
Okay. What about how I don't know that we did like a New Year's workout regiment or, made any whatever.
Other than that one day where I just completely spaced out and did not finish my 100 push-ups, I have been doing at least 100 push-ups every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been averaging, even with snowstorms, I have been averaging at least 30K runs every week.
Excellent.
Today I am at 18.3 miles or something like that, or 18.5. So I need another mile and a half before tomorrow night to
Mm-hmm.
keep up my pace. So I'd say no. I don't recall committing to a New Year's type of thing, other than my plan was to continue, stay the course.
Yeah.
If anything, for me, my meditation practice has been less consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Not just since the beginning of the year. It's been about a year where it just like when COVID's time started to kick in
Mm-hmm.
is when things started to kind of like fall apart, which is interesting. I think that's sort of like counterintuitive because but yeah, I guess that's probably where I have suffered, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, the most, where I've been impacted
Yeah.
was that my yoga and my meditation practices are less. They're still there. They're just not as as pronounced as they were. What about you?
Uh, yeah, mine has been going pretty well. I've actually signed up with CrossFit now to go 5 days a week instead of the 3 day a week. I'm doing my yoga instead of taking Tuesday and Thursday to do completely yoga. I'm doing yoga after my workout. So I always do a little bit of stretching yoga as part of my workout, but then I'll do a longer, more extended stretching that focuses on my back and hips and on my Tuesdays and Thursdays after the workout. And then I've still got to I can't not do yoga though, like a full half hour just dedicated to it at
Mm-hmm.
least once a week, just because I start stiffening. I
Mm-hmm.
get stiff and even though I'm doing some of it, it's not the same as doing a full workout. So that's been good.
Yep.
The push-ups, of course, we've been doing the 100 push-ups a day since July.
Some of us more so than others.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually last weekend was the first weekend I took off. Like I did miss one day that I completely forgot, but my shoulders were really spent
Mm-hmm.
from my workouts during the week at CrossFit, and we've been doing a lot of snatches and a lot of Olympic overhead lifts. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
my shoulders could really use a day of rest. I probably didn't need 2 days of rest though. I probably could have done one day of rest and taken if I was concerned about overtraining,
Yep.
could have simply done sets of 10. I rationalized it. You know,
Yep. Yeah. Good job.
good job. I recognize the rationalization. So does that make it less? I don't know.
I
I
think that makes it
rationalize my
worse.
rationalization.
Yeah, you recognize it, but you still did it. I think that makes it actually worse. So, oh, brother. All right. Cool. Yeah. What else we got? Let's see. So that was you. Oh, you go again though. Tell me.
Okay.
You recently switched to Ring Central.
I did. And, I didn't. So I had another VoIP provider that I was selling as my company, not necessarily selling it. We just recommended it as
Mhm.
a preferred vendor. And I wasn't pleased with the way some of that was going. So I finally said, you know what? I am sick of fighting with voice over IP with these little vendors. And I say little, I mean, they were multi-million dollar companies. But then I was like, I just want to work with the biggest company out there. I want to work with, you know, they.
Now, so let me before you go for let me
Mhm.
ask. Um, how do you reconcile that statement with being a company your size when I could go out and hire someone like IBM to do what you do?
Well, I don't know. I just know that I
Okay,
was,
just checking.
you know, I I just know that I was tired of them not providing the services that I needed. Like
Yep.
they didn't have features that I needed, or if they did have them, they were rough and they
Yep.
were not completely functional. Now, to answer your question, why I would say Sublime would do it better than IBM is one, we're a smaller, more focused company.
Hmm.
While we don't have 50, well, 70 years of being in business, we do have 12 years of being in business. And we are very focused on the exactly what you need, not a broad spectrum. So,
But what if like we had like if there was I don't know somebody we knew who was in the business of providing VoIP services? Like what if it was Kevin Landers?
if he could do it better,
Hmm.
like if he could do it better than say Ring Central, because that's what we're talking about is in this case, if he could do it better
Yep.
with all the features and I get better service out of him, because I'm not tickled pink about the service at Ring Central from a standpoint of I can talk to somebody now and they'll
Yep.
fix it for me right now on the phone with them.
Right.
Um, it's a bigger channel. I mean, I call in, I'm not special at all. As far as the support goes, I'm an MSP, but I'm not special to them. They've got thousands of me's out there where,
Thousands of me's.
however, I create a case, I send this case over. It, I may not talk to that person, but they do get it done. They get it
which
done.
which is what you want,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I want.
Yeah.
Because that's where I was facing it with the smaller voice over IP. I'd say, I need this done. Well, I had a deal where the phones weren't ringing. And that's a very important function of phones. Company.
Phones should ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the phones weren't ringing. And I told him, I said, look, this client is very upset about this. This has been going on for months. They will give you another 30 days to figure out what's wrong with this, and they're going to change providers. They didn't get it fixed.
I seem to remember this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. I mean, the client was being very fair. They
Yep.
weren't they weren't uh, they weren't saying, "Hey, we're just anxious to get rid of you. We don't like you." No, none of that. We're giving you the opportunity to fix it. If you fix it over the next 30 days, we're good. We're staying. So, but we switched to Ring. Ring has all the features that I can imagine. I mean, everything that I've thought that I wanted to do, it
Hmm.
does it. It's included, and it's the same price as I was paying for the small provider. You know, you know,
There you go.
it does it a little bit differently. The support's a little different, but I got the phones. I got the, all my, I get DIDs. I didn't get DIDs with the other.
Question on that now. If I so Paradigm presently has two phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Can I port them both over? Is that two separate plans, or do I need like an ultimate plan, or can I do that with the basic? How does that work?
So depending on how many phones or extensions you need, if
Yep.
you just need one extension
Yep.
with two phone numbers,
Yep.
all you're paying for is one extension and a phone number, which is I think $3 or $4 a month for that phone number to be
Okay.
added. But
So
it just both.
so their $20 a month plan or whatnot, plus another $4 a month for a second line or something.
Right. Well, it's not a second line. It's just
Or
another
line.
DID. Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
So like I have two phone numbers. I have one. I have. Well, I actually have three DIDs. I have. Well, I know I don't anymore. I just have two DIDs for the main line. I've got my main line phone number, and then I've got my tech line phone number. And then everybody else actually has, every extension has a public DID that can be dialed, which that's just the way Ring does it. I said, I don't need a DID on every phone. And they said, that's fine, but we put one on every phone. Okay.
Right.
I don't care. I mean, if
Yep.
that's the way you do it, I don't care. But I get text. I can have, one of the things I've wanted texting to my tech support line for multi-factor authentication for things that we do for our clients. I can set it up and point it to my tech line. All my techs get it. It's brilliant.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! But I couldn't get that at my previous VoIP provider. The portal is really slick. I've got a really nice heads-up display that I'm looking at here on my Mac,
Yep.
and I can see nobody is on the phone right now. But when they are on the phone, I can see who they're on the phone, what phone number they're talking to.
That's cool. So you can spy on your employees.
I can spy on my employees, but
Excellent.
they know it. I told them. but I can see who they're on the phone with. I can even listen to the phone call as a manager. It's primarily for sales. You wouldn't necessarily do it for, I mean, maybe on service calls too, but I can.
Sorry. And do you have the iOS app installed?
I do have the iOS app installed. I don't have.
Can you make a phone call like from your corporate number via that app?
Absolutely. And it sounds great. That was one of the other problems. The previous vendor also had an app. The call quality was awful. And it didn't have anything to do with whether I was on wireless or whether I was on cellular. I mean, you and I both know that if you're on cellular, it can get less quality because you're doing a voice over IP session over VPN over the cellular. That can be glitchy on anybody's system.
Yep.
But I should never have problems on my wireless because I can see my wireless access point from where I'm standing right now. So I'm not out of range.
Right.
But I would have glitchy phone calls on my cell phone app. I've never had any glitchy phone calls on my Ring Central app other than when I should. Like if I'm here at my house and I'm on my wireless and I get in my truck and I drive out of range of my wireless, it's got to switch from wireless to cellular. There's going to be a glitch. I mean, that's fair. I mean,
so on that note, you've been on 5G since the new iPhone 12s came out.
Mm-hmm.
How's that treating you?
Fair to middling. The 5G is not widely. It's not everywhere in Tennessee. Now it is expanding more and more. At the gym, I have it. Once I get down the street from my house, I have it. I don't have it at my house, but it's getting better. Of course, it's just 5G. It's not the 5G ultra wide, super fast bandwidth.
But I thought you had that briefly, didn't we? I thought one time we the first day or second day you made a call. And it was like lightning fast.
We did, and that was just regular 5G.
Oh.
So
okay then.
Yeah, so the regular 5G is nice, when I have it, but it fades around. In Nashville proper, I get good 5G. In Hendersonville proper, I get good 5G. And it's funny, where was I? I was somewhere rural, really rural, and I had 5G there, and I was like, huh, how about that?
Okay, then.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right.
So it's getting
That's good
better.
to know. I was curious about that. You also asked about Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. So I saw in the news that he is stepping down as the CEO.
On my birthday, he gave that announcement, apparently.
Yeah. So I figured if somebody knew more details about that, you probably would. I mean, you and Jeff talk as often as you used to, right?
Yeah, well, he called me the night before just to see how I felt about his decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, dude, I mean, you've done some amazing things now. You own like the biggest company in the world. You're the world's richest man. I mean, neck and neck with Elon. And I know, had you stuck it out with the missus, you'd be like far and away the world's richest man. But
Yeah.
look, you've already come back, and so like, dude, you got to do what's right. Yeah,
You
totally
got to
makes
do it.
I was pleased to see that the Amazon stock price was not really significantly affected at all based on the news.
Yep.
He is going to stick around as like the executive chairman, so he's still going to be like overseeing the board.
Mm-hmm.
He's stepping back from day-to-day operations, which actually he had been doing for the last couple of years. He had been stepping back already, but he threw himself back into things a year ago when COVID started to really ramp up.
Right.
And he's definitely, like, business ethics aside, and that's a big aside, he's done some amazing things. And full disclosure, I have a large chunk of my retirement plan and my investment portfolio in Amazon. So it's in my interest to see it do well. In fact, I'm gonna hang on a second. I'm gonna buy a few more shares right now.
Because our podcast is going to influence the market, and when they hear a positive from Peter Nikolaidis and Adam Bell, then they're definitely going to buy. So you need to get that in before we release.
I just added to my position right now. So just listener, I wouldn't take anything as what we say as investment advice.
Hey,
what's almost certain is that the fact that I've just bought some right now means that it's going to go down in short term.
Well, the good news is I will buy some more stuff in Amazon probably today, and that'll help you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyway, I don't see this as as a bad thing. The head, I forget the guy's name, Jeff something or not Jeff, Jack, the new guy, has been head of Amazon Web Services.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of funny because Satya Nadella was the head of Microsoft Cloud. So it really shows where they're going, right? So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to watch, but it doesn't shake my confidence in the company at all. Again, as is evidenced by the fact that I just it added to my shares right now.
Yeah. No, I think that I did expect Amazon to take a slight tick down when he announced that. I mean, just because it always seemed everybody was like, well, I'm gonna get off board now while I can. Right. And then they like, oh, well, I shouldn't have sold then.
Yeah, but it was actually up. It was shares were up 1 or 2% that day of the announcement.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's because he said he's still going to be around as the executive chairman.
Yeah. I did have a stock market win. I've been saving since my girls were old enough to have a social security number in their 529 to pay for their college. And my oldest daughter is now in college, and she's drawing against that 529 to pay for tuition. Well, in January, I had to pay her tuition, and I actually got to sell while it was high. I bought low and I sold high.
That never happens.
That never happens. But
That's the way it's supposed to work.
yeah. So I got more money. I got more for my money than I put in. So it was like, it's brilliant. This is textbook. I should write a book now on stock market investing.
Are you going to call it something like buy low, sell high?
Yeah, you read my mind.
That's amazing. I don't think anyone has ever recommended that sort of advice before. I think that's like brand new.
Yep. We should coin that.
Yeah. You want to probably copyright that one. Like, I wonder, buy low, sell high.com. That IP address is not, it's not responding right now. That domain name does not go. I wonder if that's available. I'm going to try to buy that. It's a good thing we're not live streaming this, or someone else would have already bought that domain.
They would have bought it so quickly. Yeah.
Let's find out. I want to try.
All right.
I'm waiting for my verification code here. Okay, here it is. Buy low, sell high.com. Yeah, I mean, someone has to have this.
Someone has to have that.
They're just not doing anything with it right now.
If not, you should buy it and then list it for sale on GoDaddy.
Yeah, it's been registered since 1996. Oh, but buy low, sell high.ai is available.
Oh, yeah. I can see what you could do with that.
Buy low, sell high AI. Love it. All right.
That actually would probably be a good company if you built a right AI around it. There you go.
More and more when I hear about AI, though, it's just people. People say like, "Oh, our AI is blah blah blah," and there's no AI at all involved.
Yeah, so, it's their team.
What else we got? Talk to me about books.
So Michael Connelly, have you ever read any of his books on purpose or on accident?
Doesn't ring any bells.
So do you, as an Amazon subscriber, Harry Bosch, you've seen Bosch.
You have recommended Bosch to me. I have not watched it yet, but it's in my list. I think I may have added it to my watch list.
Yeah, so that's a very good series, and you would enjoy it on Amazon. The shows take their episodes and base them on the books. If you're a purist, you'll be dissatisfied, but that's the way it is with any book.
But if I haven't read the books, I won't know any.
You won't know it one bit, and you'll just enjoy the show. And then you can read the books later, and then you can feel like, hey, this feels familiar.
Yeah, this reminds me of something, and I've forgotten all about how it was different.
But what I like about Michael Connelly is he's been writing for 30 years. And he's like Stephen King in that he's got a world built up. Like Stephen King's is in Maine and Castle Rock and all the, all these cities, but Michael Connelly focuses on the West Coast, Hollywood, LA. He focuses on real things. Like his world is in, existing cities and, Hollywood division, robbery, homicide, and real cities and things like that. But he's got multiple main characters. Okay. Harry Bosch being one of them, Jack McAvoy being one of them, Harry's stepbrother, Mickey Haller, who is the Lincoln lawyer, which Matthew McConaughey played the Lincoln lawyer in the movie.
Okay, I was gonna say that sounds familiar.
And then Rachel Walling, who's an FBI agent. And so he wrote a number of books where these characters cross with one another in different parts of the book, and they have their own series and their own stories. And I'm enjoying reading his universe. The only bummer about him is his characters are very tragically flawed. Okay. Like you really like them, you want them to do well. They have their flaws, and they don't always get to have a nice love life. I mean,
They
as
don't do
far
so well.
yeah, they they're always tragically divorced, or they have a love now and then it falls away, so they're never like super happy, like in their
Yeah,
personal lives,
yeah.
so I don't know what that means about the author, or it may mean nothing to do with anything, but it is, because I guess there's, I'm sure that there's a writing technique that you call that, where the main character has to be dissatisfied in order to be who they are and continue being who they are. Because John D. MacDonald wrote in the 60s about his character, the Travis McGee, and he was very much like that. He was tragically flawed, single, wants to be in love, falls in love, can't stay, for whatever reason, whether the woman is tragically killed in a, part of his mystery, or they just can't seem to keep it together. I think it's kind of I don't know, it must be a recipe for these flawed tragic heroes.
Okay.
If you look at Donald Draper for Mad Men, he was the same way.
Never
You
actually saw Mad Men. I think I saw like half of the first episode, and that's as far as I got.
Yeah. Well, dang it. Okay, paste that in there. But yeah, I mean, Donald Draper was that way. He was handsome, he was charismatic, he was talented, but he's divorced. And he's divorced, then he has trouble with his next wife and his, girlfriends. They're always so I don't know. I guess it's some part of the human element. Nobody wants to read a happy book where they fall in love and live happily ever after, and just I guess those kind of books don't move forward. Although, what's his name? Oh, I read a book series, and it was like, oh, I can't think of the author's name. I'll think of it, and if I think of it, I'll put it in the notes. But a couple, they're the main character, and they are they are in love, and they have a solid, healthy relationship, and it was unusual for the book to work well with two healthy characters, because there's never a place where they're like, oh, now the romantic drama is they're now against each other. There's never a point where they're against each other. They're always together as a team against whatever's out there against them.
Okay.
And and to me, that was very refreshing.
It's good to have allies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the closest we ever get to that is, that we accept, is if two partners, like whether they're cop partners or, whatever, two, the book is always fine with two men like that, heterosexual, not, just business partners, cop partners. It's okay for the two of them to win and always be on the same page. And I got your back, but we don't want that between our male and female.
No, there's got to be tension.
It's got to be tension.
Got to be tension. Ah. So I mentioned how I had used DuckDuckGo, and I'm happy with the results. But at the same time, I've had these things sitting on my shelves for, in some cases, years.
Mm-hmm.
But I got around to deploying a couple of Google Home Minis.
Mm-hmm.
First, like very little, very informal stuff. Haven't done much. Basically, I'm experimenting because I'm looking to ditch my Sonos, but I have a huge investment in Sonos, as we've covered from time to time.
Yeah.
It does seem to be working better now that I have taken my old Play 5, old first generation one that's incompatible, off the network. So now that that's been completely removed, things do seem more stable. But it has been a recurring pattern where things seem stable for a while and then don't work after a while again. So I figured, well, if I was going to ditch it, I need to do something else that supports multi-room configurations. And I don't really care if it's stereo or not, as much as I just want to hear the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So in my den here now, my third floor, my den slash studio slash office, I have two of the Play 3s in a stereo pair. And then I've got them in most of the other rooms throughout the house. But I also have these little Amazon Echoes all over the place
Yep.
too. But I've heard some good things about Google, so I figured I would give it a shot. One thing I've noticed is that its control of smart home devices is a lot faster.
Faster. Okay.
Yes. Like I say, hey, Google, turn on everything.
There it is.
Right. You see how fast the lights came on before she even told me she was doing it, as opposed to Alexa, turn off lights.
Some of them are going off.
And that actually worked pretty well. That was pretty fast for a word.
Alexa, turn on office lights.
Okay. By the way, I have a routine you might like.
Thank you.
Quite like a routine.
So
So I haven't
Alexa,
done a
stop.
lot with them, but I was able to get some pretty decent coverage throughout the house because I have 3 of these things already. So, so while I'm shutting Google out of my search results, I did invite it into my home.
I'm not going to let you listen to what I type, but I'm going to listen to what I say.
What I say, right, exactly. So we'll check it out. I did this morning, I flipped it over. So it is the assistant on my Sonos Beam. So when I talk, which doesn't really functionally change anything because I also have my Fire TV Cube right there under the beam. So I can still call the Amazon device and get results. But for whatever reason, Google on Sonos, even though Google knows about Apple Music and Sonos knows about Apple Music, and the lady in the tube, when on my Sonos, knows about Apple Music, Google on Sonos cannot use Apple Music. So I can say, Amazon, play blah from Apple Music on Sonos, and it will. When I tell Google to do that, it's like, okay, we're playing this song from Apple Music. Sorry, something went wrong.
Sorry.
So, and today I asked, I can ask Amazon, how's the stock market? And she'll give me the results. And you ask Google how the stock market is, and she gives you a Wikipedia article telling you what a stock market is. So it's interesting, just seeing the differences. I have a feeling I will probably go back to Amazon when I'm all done testing all this, but for now I'm playing with it, see it out.
Yeah.
After listening, especially to listening to friend of the show, Scott Wilsey, on his Bubble Sort podcast, one thing that he pointed out was that Apple, if you buy stuff that is HomeKit compatible, like for instance, the lock on my front door, they tend to have a better track record. They cost more, but they're vetted more for security purposes. And I do have a couple of El Cheapo send all my telemetry straight to China light bulbs in the house, but they're on the guest network, so I'm not as worried about them, but I am running their app on my phone, so I'm a little worried about them. So I kind of moving towards the more expensive, even if I'm not using HomeKit, I'm going to probably be use HomeKit certified thing moving forward. But I just cannot see myself going to Apple HomePods. Because I would have to work with Siri, and nothing makes me angrier than that. The only thing that makes me angrier with technology than telling Siri how to do something is trying to tell my father how to do something with the technology. And on that note, follow up. Partial success in moving my parents over. So we got them off Consolidated Communications phone and DSL service. I shipped him 2 Echo Show 5s and 2 Amazon Fire TV sticks. So he now has 25 to 30 megabit per second internet, which is so much better than one or less.
Yes.
But he could not wrap his head around YouTube TV and the Fire TV sticks. So he made up his mind today that he was going back to good old fashioned direct TV. It's like, all right, there you go. I can't, whatever. So
Yeah.
rather than using a very simple remote control with like a handful of buttons, he would rather have the big giant behemoth with, something that looks like they ripped it out of the space shuttle and stuff. So
I don't understand those remotes. I don't use, but I don't know, maybe 8 buttons.
Yeah.
On, off, input, channel up, channel down, guide up, page up, so I don't have to do one at a time.
Yep.
Page down, and really that's about it.
Yeah, which is coincidentally the buttons that you have on a Fire or even an Apple remote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Power on, input, and then to be able to scroll up and down.
There you go. That's most of what you select. Select is a useful one.
Yeah. I wish, and maybe it does. I do like how the Apple TV will allow you to type like your password on your mobile device rather than having to go up, A, up, down, B, up.
You can do that with Amazon too, with Fire TV stuff too.
With the app?
You can either have with the app, or you can pair a Bluetooth keyboard with some of those devices too.
Mm-hmm.
That's another option. I usually just use the app.
Yeah.
So I think that's about all I've got, other than, I continue to use my minimalist running shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't seem to be affecting me negatively. I've gone out, I did, so this past week, on Sunday, I did an 8.5 mile run.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did like a 3.5 miles, 3 miles, and yesterday 4 miles.
Cool.
And all of my times have been very comparable. Not quite as comfortable. I will tell that's a Freudian slip. Speaking about my psychology class, not quite as comfortable as my other, traditional running shoes, to be sure. But my times are not suffering. I did 2 runs. So the one I did 3 days ago and the one I did yesterday, both averaged 9 minutes, 9 seconds per mile.
Nice.
Which was hilarious, So, I'm still very, very in my zone. I mean, my fastest time like ever has been 7:54, for a mile. I'm not doing that, because when I do like super speeds like that, my heel is impacting the ground a little bit.
Yeah.
And I definitely won't be using these for like trail running, not real off-road kind of stuff. Smooth, just dirt, sure. Stuff with jagged rocks, I still need a little more cushioning. So
yeah.
But not regretting the purchase. And if I can get used to these as like my, I might just have like these and then a set of trail shoes. That's going to cut my costs because A, they cost about half as much as my regular running shoes do. And B, they last a lot longer because there's less to wear out. The only thing that wears out is the tread, the sole, which is pretty much the shoe.
Cool.
So there you go. I'm having fun with those.
Very good. Well, and I have our Nifty for the day.
What is Nifty?
So I have a Regions Bank check scanner. And you're like, well, just how nifty can that be?
I misread that because when I said before we started recording, I said that's nifty. I thought it was a Regions Bank check scam. M as in Mike. I was like, all right, well, if this is a nifty scam, let's find out.
No. So, when I started my company 13 years ago now, I looked into getting a check scanner. So when people send me checks in the mail, then I could scan them and upload them to the bank and automatically deposit them. And I want to say it was like $300 a month for that service. And at that point, I was, a struggling IT company, I was struggling to pay myself. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just driving to the bank. And that's kind of carried out, it's been that way for 13 years. Well, the bank last year changed their hours of operations from 8:30 to 4 to 9 to 4. Well,
that's convenient.
That's real convenient. And I cannot deposit checks into the ATM because the ATM will sometimes do it wrong or lose my check or it won't read it properly. And then I have to manually enter it in. But the thing that's been killing me is it'll suck in my check and it will get lost in the machine somewhere. It won't spit it back out, but it won't take it forward. Then I have to make a resolution with the bank. And so it's like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to go to the teller every time I get checks.
Do this for me.
You do this for me. Yes. But the problem with that is I would go to the bank 3 or 4 times during the week because cash flow is important. I don't.
So you shouldn't do what my assistant used to do and just hoard the checks on her desk until she felt like there were enough to justify a trip to the bank.
Yeah. No, I don't do that. When money comes in, I try to get it in my bank. So now I was like, okay, let me call the regions. I said, I'm doing a little bit better right now. My time is worth something. Let me see how much it costs. I said, maybe it'll be like $150 now. So I called them and I talked to her and she said, well, we have this, we have the thing, we use the same check scanner that you would use. And you do it through the portal. And because I didn't want mobile access, I did not want mobile. I did not want to take pictures of checks with my phone.
So why not?
Because I don't want those on my phone. I don't want them uploading to all my devices. I don't want the responsibility of routing numbers and checking numbers getting onto my phone and just having that, like I said, that responsibility plus having to keep them. I wanted a check scanner that I could scan them in there and not have electronic copies living on my devices. And so she told me, she said, well, we've got one and it's a little more expensive than the mobile check scanning. And I said, well, okay, how much is it? And she said, well, it's $50 a month. I'm like, sold. How many? I was like, how? I use the same scanner you use. I can dump it in anytime I want, and it's $50 a month. I said, what do I have to do? And she said, well, and you also have to retain the checks for like 90 days. I'm like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
I don't keep paper. I don't keep any paper, but you know what? Fine. She said, well, honestly, you really don't need to keep it, but like 30 days, in case there's a problem and we need to get a copy of the check. But really, if you really want to get down to it, you only need like 48 hours or so. But I was like, I'm going to keep the checks for 30 days just to do it. And then I'll shred them and then they'll be gone from my life. Even if I was doing the phone, I'd have to do the same thing, So I was like, yep, do it. $50. And I don't have to go to the bank between specific hours of the day, and I can upload them at midnight. Obviously, they won't actually deposit until the bank is open and the banking hours are processing. But it's very nifty. It works well. It works fast. The only thing that I would say was a bummer is I can only load one check at a time in it. I thought I could load, I can do a batch of, I go into my deposit and I say, there are going to be 10 checks, but I can't just set all 10 checks in the feeder and it suck them one at a time.
Okay.
I have to put one in, let it scan. Next one in, let it scan. Next one in, let it scan. But that's really maybe 10 seconds of my time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big deal to do that, even for 10 checks, but I'm enjoying it. It works well, it works fast, and I don't have to go to the bank anymore. Not that I mind talking to the tellers. That was always, gotta be friendly.
It's not that as much as for me, it's just like it's a time thing. And like I noticed that normally when I go to the grocery store, I'll usually do the self-checkout line just so I can move faster. But lately I've also been a little, I don't know, I've sort of been going back and forth on that.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I will. I'm like, well, you know what? It's kind of their job to do this and they bag it for me. So why wouldn't I want to? Well, generally I don't want to when it looks like there's a long line.
Mm-hmm.
Or I will go to the human checkout person when I have alcohol, because they're going to need to check my ID. And when you do it in the self checkout, that's when you have to wait for one person who's there helping all the other folks to come around.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they need to call somebody else to come around to validate. So in those circumstances, I'll go straight to an actual person. So.
Exactly. I evaluate that every time. If I have alcohol, I'm like, okay, she looks 12. I'm not going into the self checkout. That woman looks like she's 50. I'm going out, if after I've weighed all the metrics, like how much time is it going to take if I go that route?
Yep.
But I'm looking for the self checkout, and I'm looking for the self checkout helper to be not occupied or right beside the register where I'm going to go.
Yeah,
And
I had like a carton of eggs and and a carton of like almond milk or something, or heavy cream in my hand, and that's it. I'm going straight to the self checkout line. Boom, boom, boom. Touchless payment with my Apple Watch, and I'm out of there.
Yeah.
If I've got a 12 pack of Jack's Abbey Lager or Omegang Three Philosophers, I'll take my time.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can't get any the impulse buy aisle is a lot smaller in self checkout. I can't get Cadbury eggs in
We
the
don't have
self checkout.
there's nothing there. You can reach over and grab some chocolates and some nuts which are on display, but they're facing away from you, so you don't even know how much they cost.
Yeah. I just bought a $4 Kit Kat. Dang it.
Dang it. Oh God. Kit Kat. That is like, I remember the last time I had one of those now was several years ago. I seem to remember liking those when I was a kid, and that was the most disgusting thing that I have bought in a long time. Oh, that Kit Kat was horrible. Anyway, I think I think we pretty much nailed it. Are we ready to put a bow on this one?
I believe so. And
All right. Well,
you know how we would do that.
Well, I think since I introduced us, that I'll let you take us out.
All right, dear listener, we do want your feedback. If you'd like to discuss a particular topic or you want to discuss something that we've already talked about, then you can drop us a line at www.blurringthelinespodcast.com. You probably already know that since you found us here anyway. But if you want to learn more about us, you can do so at paradigmcc.com for Peter, and yogawithpeter.com. And you can find me at Sublime Computer Services, www.sublimecomp.com. And I'm sure with Google, you could find us on Twitter somehow too.
I'm sure you could. And on that note, I think it's time that maybe you, but I will ask you to push the big red button.
There you go.